Вітаю, шановні друзі! Мене звати Павло Федорченко-Кутуєв. Я маю честь представляти кафедру соціології, факультету соціології права Київської політехніки. І сьогодні в нас надзвичайно цікава подія. Це лекція пана Куніказу Акао. Пан Акао є співробітником Міжнародної організації міграції. Це глобальний підрозділ ООН, який опікується біженцями, переміщеними особами. І пан Акао має унікальний досвід. Він працює і зараз в Ефіопії, допомагаючи постраждалим від конфлікту в регіоні Тіграй. І паралельно він працює в Україні, надаючи допомогу від цієї організації, від ООН і Міжнародної організації міграції нашим внутрішньо переміщеним особам і біженцям, які змушені були полишити свої домівки у зв'язку з російською агресією проти України. Надзвичайно корисна інформація міститься в цій лекції, тому, по-перше, дякую нашому лектору і дякую всім присутнім за участь і бажаю успішної.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kunikas Akao. Right now working in international organization for migrations. It's okay? So today, I'm really happy to just try to provide a small introductory about IOM work, especially for the UN migration work, and based on my experience in Syria, Ethiopia, and of course in Ukraine. So I am not the person to say everything as for the representative of IOM. So just consider that this is not how the official message by IOM. It's just for my personal message, not on behalf of IOM organization. This is just from my side. Please acknowledge about this point. So today I just want to share about the idea, but so I think I am not super clear how much you know IOM, how much you know UN. So today we want to explain firstly self-introductions, and then just try to explain what is IOM, what is the UN bodies, and then start to consider what is the UN work for migrations. Then we were trying to consider about the work for the migration management, especially for irregular migration or something like that. Also, something emergency response, especially what we are doing in Ukraine. So then if you have any questions, I'm really pleased to provide answers as soon as possible as I can. I cannot provide so much about my detail of my self-introductions, but so I work in the IOM more than 7 years. But before I was working in JICA, Japan International Cooperation Agency, and then so I was working also IBM. So personally, I am from Japan, and you know your president Zelensky came to the Japan as for joining the G7 summit and for discussion Ukraine reconstructions. That's something like a super for all of us, especially for Japanese people. Are really welcome to your president, but because we are really with you and try to consider to support for the reconstructions. So I might think that I am trying to say that as for IOM, but as for the Japanese nationals, I'm really happy to be involved with you. So as for the before, I just would like to provide the explanation of the IOM. So I just want to, you might know where, but so just I want to show up the position of the IOM. I believe you see the screen of the United Nations. But United Nations, maybe you know that. So it's how they say body of the international government. So that try to make a coordination to make such a decisions for anything the international matters. But so of course they have a lot of the functions under the United Nations. Of course, everyone acknowledge General Assembly is part of that. So Ukraine, of course, is countries is step in the one member of General Assembly and try to discuss and decide everything. And the Security Council, it's something right now is something like a complicating situation, as you know, as a G5, a big 5 country, and the 10, how do I say, 5 permanent countries and 10 non-permanent countries step into this area and try to discuss, especially for security matters. And then we have several council, economic and social council, or several things. But so this is how they say council and discussion bodies inside the UN. But we also have several functions under the UN umbrella, so that we have several functions to support for the countries, especially for the challenging countries. So it is for the, we have UN agencies. So, you know, inside UN, so we have a lot of the UN system. Maybe you might know that several famous name, UNICEF. UNICEF is also one of the UN bodies under the funds and program system. So the UNICEF is for supporting the funding mechanism to providing child care. UNDP is a United Nations Development Program. It's supporting for the development. Something like that, based on the TOR, term of reference, we have a lot of the function to consider about any of the support to the many countries, especially for challenging countries. So think about today's, I am working IOM, International Organization for Migrations. We are also one of the UN program. So as you may see the screens, so we have a lot of the agency. I cannot explain a lot today, but down, down, down. So down, down, down. And then related organizations. So we are under IOM. Yes. So, you know, IOM is a pretty new agency under UN umbrella. We stepped into the UN system 2016. So after I joined the IOM. So before that, we are somehow international NGO. But so once we step in here, we have such a mandate to contribute for the migration issue, more global, more dynamic, so that we are right now, it's expanding our activities daily basis. So that today's presentation, I'm happy to say about how IOM are doing now. But in general, IOM has a lot of the work. As for the situations, we have 140 countries we have in the office. And we have more than 140 countries we are supporting. And because, you know, UN migration is not only for supporting the developing countries. Migration is a worldwide, global issues. Of course, something like what I experienced about Sierra Leone or Ethiopia. These countries sometimes is a country of the source of the migrations. Migrations, of course, people, especially economical reasons, some economically challenging country used to be a source of the migrations. They hope to, the people in the Ukraine, Sierra Leone, or people in the something like African regions, or sometimes the challenging countries, they hope to find opportunity to work or for the proper economic reasons or anything like a reason. So they want to move out from the countries. But that's something usual cases. But also, so in case this type of the migration make it challenging for these countries, we may say brain drains. So especially for the such a doctors, professors, such a nice important guys are out of the countries. That makes it challenging for the country's development. So that we try to consider to take care this type of the migrations, and especially for challenging developing countries. Also, something like a developed country, we might say that also has a challenging situation as for the migrations. Of course, as for IOM point, we consider that migration has a benefit for both countries, source of the migrations and the destination of the migrations. So proper migrations provide a good effect to the both countries because people who welcome to the migrations, so it means they have a lot of the potential to receive the human resources and also make many diverse to the cultures. So according to the IOM point, we think migration provides a good benefit. But sometimes it makes a stress between the migrants and the host communities. So we also acknowledge about this situation, and sometimes so migrants are willing to come back from the country who went out to the countries, also hope to come back to the origin of the countries. So we IOM also try to take care for this type of the migration issues. Like that, we had a lot of the office, more than 175 countries. We are under the IOM the partners. And then we have an office almost all of the countries. So it is meaning that migration is not only for the issue of the developing countries, also the considering the challenging discussion points for the all of the countries, including developed countries. Okay, then, so based on this migration issues, we have a lot of the things which we need to do under the UN umbrellas. Of course, so this is just for the general topic, what we do under the IOM. Migration, one is that crisis response. It's a typical things what we are doing. I will explain after about Ukraine cases. Like Ukraine cases, of course, unfortunately to say that this is somehow challenging situations. Also, something like Syria, something Yemen, something South Sudan. So these countries also something challenging, sometimes conflict, sometimes earthquake, sometimes for the weathers, several reasons. People are not able to stay the area because of the critical situations. So people has to move out from the origin of the places to the outside. So think about these crisis situations. We IOM to take care of them, to provide proper support. For even they are moving out, they are human beings. They shall receive proper human support, like a shelter, like a food, like how they say, clothes, or maybe sometimes livelihood. So this support we are supporting under the crisis response. This is one of the big themes under IOM. Migration management. This is also, of course, it's a link to the migration issues, but not focusing on only for the emergency response. Even normal cases, Ukrainian peoples, of course, used to move to the Europe as for the tourist. Or sometimes you want to go out to the Europe or USA for the businesses. Or maybe sometimes anything. So they have, of course, you have an opportunity to move out, to work or to make a leisure or something. So this is, of course, everyone's right. But so if we are going to work to the outside, sometimes it's not super good coordination happens, especially from Africa to Europe or Africa to Middle East. We acknowledge that something like severe cases happens. We say trafficking, human trafficking. So people trying to find opportunity to work to the, for example, Middle East from African regions. But unfortunately, this coordinator are not taking care about this migrant, and then they might bring the passport from the migrant, and then they are not providing proper salary to them. In these cases, it's not saying that proper migrant. Even I say that IOM considers proper migration provide a good benefit, both country of the origin and country of destinations. But it means unless we do not have a proper management, it's hard to the people, both migrant, and might be hard to the country, to the destinations. So that we try to take care about how is the proper management, how is minimizing the irregular migrations, how is providing the minimize about the trafficking. So this type of the coordination we are doing under the migration management teams. And data and research, also very important. So of course, it's difficult to say that how many migrants are there right now? How many international displacement personnel are there in the world? It's too difficult. if we put in the GPS to everyone, might be easy to acknowledge where you are. So they might count it one by GPS. If so, might be easy, but it's impossible, and we shall not do that. But we also need to acknowledge how many IDPs, how many migrants are there, to consider for the proper policy for the next activities. So both, if we acknowledge 5 million displaced personnel are there in Ukraine, we need to consider, okay, how many shelter needed, how many food are needed. So based on this data, every country, every agency need to consider the next step, next policy, next implementing activities, so that to acknowledge proper informations are very important. So that this data and research group are trying to acknowledge the number of the displacement personnel from Ukraine, for example, from Ethiopia, for example, to acknowledge the numbers, to consider for next strategic idea for the country or agency. So this is one of the big themes under the IOM. Yes, of course. So we have a lot of the cross-cutting discussion we are doing. Migration is not only happens only for emergencies, like gender equalities. But some countries are not so much welcoming, so gender situations. So like Uganda, for example, they are not so welcoming, such how they say, yes, so about situations, but so some country welcome. So because of the gender imbalances, so some people are trying to migrate. So this is also one of the considerations. But migration, so something like the migration environment, like country, especially for the Pacific regions, where it's challenging for the situations at the yearly basis. Their land is going to be shrink because of the global warming. So that this is also one of the reasons, one of the source of the migrations. But something like that, we have a lot of cross-cutting issues under the IOM. Yes. So this is something like an explanation of the IOM. Then back to today's discussion's point, what I did in my experience in the IOM. So in Sierra Leone, so I used to step in the past for the Ebola crisis. So under Ebola, you may acknowledge or you may not. It was super challenging situations, the case of the west region of the Africas. That time it was such crucial more than the coronavirus. More than 3,000 people had been passed away of this Ebola crisis. So I stepped in the project manager of the Ebola crisis management. And then I was also stepping in the project manager of the diaspora coordinations. Diasporas is something like, how do I say? We used to say diaspora is such, how do I say, human resources to work outside as for proper migration procedures. Someone who works outside as a doctor, professionals, engineer. So even in Ukraine, I know 1,000 of people migrated to the countries, to the nice job, to work for the people in the other countries. But we try to engage them to support for the country of the host countries and support for the country of origins. Migration powers and the diaspora powers are special to link to the country of the origin and the country of destinations. So my experience, I was a coordinator, the manager of diaspora coordination to strengthen the Sierra Leone diasporas and try to consider to support to the Sierra Leone from the diaspora Sierra Leoneans staying in the UK, staying in the USA, something. Also, I used to contribute for the youth management for the project managers. So as I said, irregular migration is one of the IOM's work. And I work for this project to minimize the irregular migrations as for the project manager of Sierra Leone. So I can explain a little about this point. Then I work in the Ethiopia as for the, how do I say, head of office in the several regions. In Tigray, it's a pretty clear image of the critical. So in the Tigray, it's under the conflict 2 years within the government and also in the Tigray regions. As for the Tigray head of office, I was coordinating with staff to support that. And the last, I am working the Ukraine. I believe so already we communicate 20 minutes. I would like to proceed a little bit quickly about. I do not want to explain about IOM, but so just I want to say that again, we believe migration providing good effect to the both country of origin and the host. So that, for that, maybe so you might acknowledge some of the tension and the stress because of migrations. We hope to minimize such a stress and challenging because of migrations and try to provide good output as for the IOM, because of the migrations. So for that, we are doing several work. I do not want to explain about. Yes, the first, I believe so. So if you are Ukrainian people are listening about these videos, maybe you are familiar about Ukrainian situations, but just try to explain a bit. I want to start the other countries first. First, I just try to explain what I am doing for the irregular migrations in case of the Syrians. In Syrians cases, we consider the irregular migration as somehow big challenging for these countries. But you know what you don't know about Syria is that this is tiny, not tiny, I cannot say that. I do not want to say tiny, but it's a small African Western country here in the western side of Africa. It has more than 6 million populations in the Syrians, and it's increasing right now, 7 million right now. But so according to the message, more than 100,000 migrants youth are willing to move to the outside country yearly basis. Even small country like Sierra, more than 100,000 youth are moving out yearly basis. It means the youth is a source of development. Youth is a source of the future of the countries. But as for the situations, people are willing to move out to find a good job opportunities, to escape such a stress situation, challenging. So that's something like challenging for the country in general in Sierra Leone. And so they are trying to move to Europe through this Sahara road. They are moving to the Senegal, moving to the Mali, moving to the Algeria to Morocco, and to the Europe. So maybe you may know that a lot of the boat people came from Africa to Europe. This happens because not only because of Syrians, but Syrian people is also one of the source of the migrant from the Africa to the Europe. So this migrations is, of course, is challenging a lot. One is that, as I said, that brain drains. And the second point, this migration is not proper migration procedures. It's irregular migrations. So irregular migration means, so they do not have a proper passport. They do not have a proper visa. So if they have a visa on the Europe, like UK, France, Germans, and then they have a job opportunity there, of course, it's super welcome to coordinate. But so unfortunately to say that majority of people did not coordinate such things. They are just moving out with a truck and then without any of the certificate, without any of the documents. So it means, so through this trip, they face a lot of challenging. So sometimes, so people, such a trafficker used not to take care of them, try to them to out of the truck on the way to this movement. So here is a big desert. So people, the migrant, used to face a challenging situation that during this harsh trips. That's one of the information is that. So as for this information is that during this movement, as many people had been passed away, at least according to the IOM. Even Sierra Leone had been suffered and the people, migrants, passed away during this movement. And other country also facing similar situations like that. So we know migration is nice, but so if we are trying to coordinate, actually they are moving out without proper management, it had a big harsh movement, so that we try to minimize such a risk. For that, IOM so try to take care for the support for the job opportunity under Sierra Leone. Migration is one of many reasons it happens. So sometimes political challenging, sometimes gender imbalances, but sometimes, of course, crisis like conflict. But so mainly, like for Sierra Leone's, economical challenging is a big challenging for the Sierra Leone situation, especially for youth in Sierra Leone. So majority of people are willing to move out to find the proper job opportunities. But if we consider Sierra Leone has a job opportunities for youth, so they are not willing to consider to conduct irregular migrations. So under the IOM, we providing the job opportunities and here in Sierra Leone. And at least under my project 3 years, we provided 2,000 job opportunities under the Sierra Leone to finding through the vocational training, so coordination with entrepreneurship, and we have a linkage with the private companies, so that at least based on my observations, more than 2,000 people had received the benefit about this IOM support. This is something, a typical activity of that. Trafficking in persons is also, as I said, very challenging. So people, especially smugglers, we say that, are used to try to cheat to the youth in Sierra Leone or youth in the African region. Say that, for example, oh, you have a big opportunity if you are moving to Europe. So if you provide $3,000 to me, so I will bring to UK, I will bring to you to the German and coordinate proper job opportunities. So based on this cheating message, people and the family try to provide this money to them and then let them let the youth to move to the Europe. But this message is incorrect. So someone, especially for the young, who are facing challenging, if the guy so used to be sell out, and as for the slave, is in general. And also the sexual harassment, sexual abuse also very high if the youth people are moving out as a irregular migration status. So we stop about this movement. This is the IOM's work. So like that. So, so this lady was tortured because of this improper migrations, traffickings. Yes. Then I just want to also explain one of the typical activity of diaspora coordination, as you said. I'm sorry I want to mention about this message from the Sierra Leone context because I work a lot in Sierra Leone, not for the Ukraine so much. But even small countries, Sierra Leone, are thousands of the diaspora out in the UK, USA. For example, in the USA, this is a mapping for how many Sierra Leone diaspora there. So that especially eastern side of USA, thousands of the Sierra Leonean diaspora are there to do several work is there. So in Ukraine, more than that, more millions of them are there. And then, so they have many services, many technical activities here in the USA or UK, and they're also providing the, such a consideration to the country of the origin to support for the service delivery, providing a training to the youth, for the people trying to provide the in-kind contribution like that. But I know Ukraine cases also, the people outside of the Ukraine, so Ukrainians are willing to support this country a lot, to providing donations, support from the outside to the Ukraine. This is special for Ukraine. But this type of engagement, so this is, I believe it's very good for the source of the countries. So in Ukraine also, in Syria also, in Ethiopia also. So we also support the type of this coordinations. So we, IOM, to engage diasporas to providing health services, flood prevention services, agricultural services through the diaspora context. So that, I do not want to explain about the project detail, but as I say that IOM is an organization to take care of the diaspora and to link to the source of the countries and how to utilize these resources to support for the countries. That's what we did in the IOM. In Sierra Leone cases, so diaspora doctors came back to Sierra Leone and providing the free surgery services like that. This is one of the typical activity what we did under the IOM. Also training, sees Ukrainian professor based in USA, providing training to the Sierra Leone students, like that. I might think that refugee and the IDPs are a little bit tricky terminologies. So of course, it's different. We, IOM, used to work for the displaced personnel, and UNHCR, you may know, it's much familiar than the IOM, but so they are coordinating refugees. Refugees normally, so they are out of the country, and because of the political or such situations. So that's special charters provide a definition of the refugees. So if he or she is under the refugee definitions, they have received the proper protection coordination situations. That's something like a special, and the UNHCR did good job for that. But so why IOM are doing a lot of the work exceed for the refugees is that, of course, even someone who had a chance to receive refugee status, supers, UNHCR or country of these host countries taking special support to them. But even someone who do not have a refugee status, like a normal migrant. So I am migrant in Ukraine. So I am Japanese and staying in the Ukraine. But so thanks for the Ukraine government. So government of Ukraine supported to take care of me, so super, so that I'm happy to be here without any challenging. But some people are not same things. Even they are moving out. So as migrant, they are not taking care so well as for the unfortunate situations. But so that even he or she is not refugees, I know something support are needed. So IOM try to take care this activity, not only refugees, but also other peoples. And the last point, deputy is also one of the typical terminology of the migrations. Country, like especially for the source, the destination of the migrations, and used to bring back to the source of the countries as for the strong ways. Especially USA, the time of the Trump regime, so it's common that there is someone who has an improper irregular status of the migrant in USA. The migrant was captured and brought back to the source of the country as force. So IOM's point, we are not welcoming this process, even though their status is irregular. But so they have also right to stay and to secure proper human rights. But so unfortunately, if they are moving out as a deputy back to the countries, this is also IOM to take care of them. So these are the several activities what we are doing in the idea. I do not want to explain about this point. And then, so just try to explain for the Ethiopian cases, if you don't mind. So how many? It's okay? Yeah. Yes, so I believe I started more than 30 minutes. I wanted to stop more 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I will stop it. So I believe my experience in Ethiopia and the current experience in the Ukraine are a little bit similar. But because as we try to come back to the IOM work in general, yes. I was explaining the IOM's work, especially mainly migration management. So in general, what I did in Sierra Leone. So my Sierra Leone is economically challenging countries, but not under the conflict. So that's my work for the diaspora coordinations, my work for the voluntary return activities, my work for the irregular migration activities is under the migration management cases. But so as for Ethiopia or currently Ukraine, we considered crisis response cases. So that's we were also trying to explain what we are doing under the crisis management. So I was and I am the head of the office in Syria in Tigray. And so in Tigray, we had a conflict between the government of the Ethiopia and the Tigray region 2 years. Fortunately, so both of the party signed a peace agreement November 2022, so last 2 years. So right now we have a much safe and a much peaceful situation in Tigray. But within 2 years, under the severe conflict inside in the Tigray and Addis Ababa and the government, it had a challenging. So that's as for the head of office in Tigray, we need to take care for the humanitarian support for the Tigray peoples. But because within 2 years, of course, government of Ethiopia not able to step in these countries and also not able to providing the humanitarian activities because under the crisis. So even these situations, UN agency, like a humanitarian partners, are willing to support for the people in Tigray. But because even crisis, even the conflict, people are staying, people are living, people need to secure proper human rights under the crisis. So even the crisis, so IOM, UNHCR, several UN or NGO had a chance to step into this area and support for the several activities. So this is, I do not want to explain one by one. But so as for the head of office, so this type of the coordination, what we are doing. So I believe this is also similar structures in the idea in the Ukraine. But so also it's easy to, nice to know about what is the cluster system in the UN and this humanitarian activities. In the humanitarian activities, you might know that we have a lot of the agency. So I'm not sure how many of you acknowledge all of the activity of the humanitarian activities, but as in general, you might know that a lot of the agencies are doing a lot of the things. So it means we need to take care of the proper coordination. Otherwise, we might not have a chance to provide the proper activities. For example, if the IOM support for the Europeans, and then UNHCR also support European, or other agencies also support European. Of course, it's nice for the European, but so we have limited resources. So that if we just try to focus only one regions, one area without coordinations, we cannot provide a big benefit to the people in the Ukraine. It's one example. Like that in Tigray also. A lot of the city or town or village are suffering situations. But so if we are not coordinating well, the people are not able to receive properly and with equal basis. So that as for the cluster system, we try to make it. What is cluster system is? So as for the activities based on the crisis situations, we try to gather as an agency and try to consider which agency are doing what. So for example, in health, so IOM is part of that, but also WHO is also part of this. And several health agencies like MSF, so Red Cross, also several agencies, of course, supporting health. But so we should not provide support immediately. Once we conduct a meeting and try to decide, okay, this city is in charge of the IOM. So this city, the MSF is going to take care. This city, Red Cross are doing. Well, this coordination makes a best effect to the all people. So this is the system of the clusters, and the IOM is part of the shelter team, and the IOM is a part of the watch teams, and the IOM is also in charge of the camp and the coordination and the health. So these are the IOM's work doing under the activities. Of course, IOM cannot do everything. For education, UNICEF are doing good job. Food and the delivery, WFP are doing something like a super nice activities. So that to take care of the responsibilities, we are trying to support it. So if I believe the time is almost the end, I just try to hope to show up IOM Ukraine's work. But so I believe it's really too much. So I do not want to explain one by one. But so just 2 to 3 minutes, okay? So based on this context of humanitarian response, IOM Ukraine also doing similar activities what we did in Ethiopia. So as for the last year, we contribute more than 3.8 million supporting to the all of the Ukraine regions for the, such as I said, water cases, site management, or the cash support, food delivery, health. So mental health and site protection very important. Even so, someone, of course, it's easy to see that building broken, we fix it. It's a very clear, easy, and very important work. But human being, it's also, we face a lot of challenging in the mind, mentalities. So people have been suffered and traumatic because of the conflict. We need to take care about this type of support. So we are under the activities and the protections. People are suffering a lot of the situations and also have been suffered gender violence or anything violence relating to the situations. So we special cases, special protection support to the individual and to providing the activities. So this is one of the main activities of the IOM Ukraine. Even right now, unfortunately, we acknowledge in Ukraine, we have more than 5 million displacement IDP, we say, here in Ukraine. So that we are under the consideration to support, especially for these 5 million personnel. Also, we need to take care. But also, like the Kyiv, like review, several cities are pretty stable. And the people, we acknowledge more than 5 million people came back to the town as voluntary basis. But even you come back to the towns, you might face, no job opportunities, or such a situation is different. So that we need to take care for the returnee. So this is also a big activity for IOM. I do not want to explain one by one because of the time, but so this is for something general things. To sum up what I want to say that, in that today, I just want to explain what is IOM, what is the support for the migration situations, especially for based on my experience, Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and Ukraine. So I might think that it's a little bit confusing why IOM is there, even UNHCR here. But as I said that, so migration issue is not only refugees. Even normal displacement personnel, if normal migrant facing challenging. IOM try to take care and try to support, mitigate the stress, challenging. And then after that, we want to make a proper migration situation to benefit both source of the migration. It means like Sierra Leone, and the destination of the migration, something Europe or something USA. So Ukraine might be both. So we want to make a good world, good community to support for this type of activities. So as for the IOM staff, I want to contribute as for the situations. Thank you very much. Okay, if you have any question or comment or anything, I'm happy to hear that. Okay. Yeah, so please write it down for the, I believe, so I am not able to see the YouTube, but so I believe I can see that. So if you have any comment or just write it down So we will read it about this message. Okay, I would like to. India with the UK government scheme for Philippines. Okay. Thank you very much. The point I just read it. So yes, the question from the Professor Pablo, that's about the UK government scheme for the refugees sent to Rwanda. Yes, this is clearly says that as for the not IOMs, we did not provide official message as per se, but at least in the UNHCR providing, UNHCR providing this is a concern about this process to the UK, to the Rwandans. And I am also not to say that I am in charge of the for the IOM, but as for my opinion is that same message as for the UNHCR. So of course, I know, so migration sometimes providing a social stress. So that even in UK, a lot of the irregular migration came into the countries and are facing the challenging. This is also understanding idea, but also such a moving bring to the migrant to the outside countries as force. It's we say deportees. And we do not welcome this idea because if migrants in UK has agreed to move to Rwanda, that might be okay. But at least based on my observation, this movement is a forced movement to bring UK to Rwanda. So this is not our idea, not welcoming this idea, and so that to minimize these migration issues, that's not good about this point. Yes. Anything? I'm happy to hear any of the question or any of the comments, not only for focusing for the communication, like what I explained about the Sierra Leone, Ethiopia, and Ukraine, but also like the Professor Pablo, so anything about migration cases. I am not saying as for the IOM, I am not, how would I say, DG, but so as for my opinion, I can't say anything. So. Also offered by the UN. What's the question is?
Are there any courses dealing with migration?
Yes, we have it, but we have for the people, non-IOM staff can take courses. But so it's something a combinations. Migration issue is not only offered by IOM. So UN training mechanism based in the Roma in the ILO offers several migration-related training also. So I can share the link. But so we have several training opportunity under the UN system, but I'm sorry that it's not, how to say, combined. Some training material are there in the ILO, some training materials in IOM, some training material in the UN system. So if you are interested in, I will try to share this link through the Professor Pablo and share to you. This one? Okay, I believe so. This is, what do you think about struggling to get offshore? Yeah, so for me, and we are, of course, trying to minimize the stress and documentary challenging for the migration movement. So I do not explain, today I did not explain about that. But so border management or immigration services support for the counselor is also one of the IOM activities. We say IBM, International Border Management. So this activity is try to minimize the stress and the challenges through the movement from one country to other countries. So it's like to minimize the sometimes document check may take 1 week or sometimes. So for example, to make it digitalizations, not to take 1 week, just 1 day like that. So we try to minimize such a stress. Of course, every country has their own rule and regulation to welcome to the migrant. So this is totally a country's choice and decisions. We IOM cannot decide, cannot force, okay, you shall welcome all migrants without any of the visa. No, we cannot say that because this is totally up to the country's decisions. But so if they decide to welcome to the migrant as for the proper process, we are happy to support to this immigration process to minimize such a documentary check or try to accelerate this step. So that I know, so sometimes hard, especially for my country, Japan's not super welcoming country, unfortunately. But so we are also hoping that to minimize such a logistical process and try to quick process to welcome to the migrant from Ukraine to Japan. As for the, you might know that, since the crisis happens, Japanese government welcomed Ukrainian peoples, more than 2,300 peoples. So, and try to provide special offers. Like that, in Ukraine context, so it has a big special treatment to the many, for the Ukrainian peoples. But, so I believe this is something good help. And in case it's a normal cases, we IOM hoping to minimize such a stress, try to consider smooth process as possible as we can. Yes. Forcefully deported. The question, how does it? Yeah, yes. This is something, I know, sorry, so this is a little bit tricky question. So yeah, the question is how to return Ukrainians who were deported to the Russia by Russian militaries. That's a really challenging point. But IOM, we have an office in the Russia also. And we, in the Russia IOM, of course, we need to take care of the Russian government. So that if some Ukrainians who are willing to come to the Ukraine as proper ways, we can coordinate it. But so it's a little bit political, so I am not able to say, and I do not have a clear idea